Hello, everybody. Thank you, Cecilia, for having made my presentation extremely boring now. So it's a second presentation of the day. I think everybody is craving for a coffee. I'll be having a 45 minutes presentation about the future, let's say. And I'll start with a quote that was actually done in the past. So 1969, it's Buckminster Fuller. I bet almost everybody knows him. And he was saying something more related to politics, actually, but I think is somehow relevant also nowadays for what we are doing and the world of architecture, which is you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And the existing reality that I want to talk to you about today is something that is basically changed over the years. So the world in which we design is no longer the same. And therefore the building, the codes, and the cities that were designed for a world that has now changed needs to change as well. So the model that we are using to design, to think about the spaces in which we are living in, needs to change. And the reason for this is because, I mean, we are seeing things around the world in the last years, more and more. This is the fires of Los Angeles, 2022. This is actually here, Thailand, 2011, big flooding. And again, Thailand. And this is Spain, this is Valencia, 2023. Big flooding just destroyed the streets of some villages nearby the city and changed the cityscape as well. Well, this is Bangkok, with a lot of pollution happening all around the city. And this is my country, this is Italy, the southern region with a big drought back in 2023. This is again Cambodia, so Thailand, and there's also a big drought here. And this is not just about pictures or about events, it's actually data. I mean, if you look in the world, we are living in a world that is point. Let's change it. Can you hear me? Okay, now they can hear me again. Oh, good? Yeah, okay. And the world is 1.5 degrees hotter than it used to be before. And CO2 is, it's a problem. We'll see it more and more. And a lot of disaster are happening around the world. This is the United States and the billion-dollar weather and climate disaster in the US. It's, of course, adjusted for inflation. So a lot of people are damaged, are affected by this climate change. And not just affected, but also dying from overheat. And so we came to a new model, let's say, a model that helps us rethinking the way we think about architecture, about a built environment in general. We brought it to Venice back in 2025. So last year we created Venice Biennale around this topic, which is called intelligence, natural, artificial, and collective intelligence. Natural intelligence is basically what we can learn from nature, from what is around us that perfected through billions of years, millions of years of evolution. The artificial intelligence is a bit what Cecilia was telling us before. It's about AI for sure, but it's also about data. Data that we can gather about the city, we can gather about ourselves, and ultimately using in designing better cities, better buildings, better objects as well. And then the collective intelligence is something that we are exercising even today. Sharing ideas, sharing thoughts, sharing point of views, projects. That is something that we exercise coming together and learning from each other, from different parts of the world sometimes, or even just from our neighborhood. And that is somehow enriching us and guiding us through challenges that somebody had before us and somehow teaches how to solve. And I'm gonna walk through these three types of intelligence through some of the projects that we have done in the past. Some of them are done by the office, some of them are done by the MIT Senseable City Lab, which is a research part of our, let's say, ecosystem. The first project that I want to show you today, it's a project that's not made by humans, but it's made by nature. So it's really about nature intelligence with a little help from our guidance. We sometimes like pavilions and temporary architecture because ultimately it gives you the possibility or opportunity to experiment a bit. You don't have a lot of rules, you don't have a set of regulations that you need to comply with, so you're a bit more free. But at the same time, The problem about temporary architecture is that after that it goes to landfill. So we try to learn from a process that we all know very well, that has been perfected through years of our evolution, the human mankind evolution, which is the fact that we are using, well, we produce food, we consume food, and sometimes if we order too much food, we can give it back to the earth as composting. So, and that will nourish and give nutrients to new plants. So we try to do the same with architecture. So we wanted to create an architecture that was actually conceal, build, then at the end of the event was demolished and composted and given back to earth. We did it in a quite singular way with a quite singular material I'm going to show you today. So that was a project of 2018. Got a nice story about the project. We were running behind schedule, and we needed to deliver that within a certain date. It was for a Milan Design Week. Got a call from a client, I answered the phone, and the client was saying, "We're running behind schedule, you need to build it faster." And I was like, you know, we can't build it, we are growing it. It took 5 weeks of growing. We growth on this hanging ropes, catenary. So we reversed the catenary, it was actually self-standing, and then it was brought back to earth. It was an extremely controlled context, the one we were building it in. It was a lab in the Netherlands, and then we transport it into a historic botanic orchard in the very city center of Milan. So we couldn't shred the mycelium there, so we brought it to a public park afterwards to be disposed, let's say. But yeah, it was an experiment, and it was really about like working with nature to build something with nature. But at the same time, nature is giving us building material. We're using building material coming from nature on a daily basis as architects. But the weird thing is that the construction and our architecture are actually somehow being built in straight lines, while nature is beautiful because it doesn't grow in straight lines. So we asked ourselves, how can we actually try to use nature in a different way, try to respect nature using it as building material in a different way, trying to sense nature, understand it, and follow it while building a building. Well, thanks to digital technologies, nowadays we can do incredible things. And so we did an experiment. We did an experiment together with Thong University in Shanghai. That was back in 2019. So we used AI before it was cool. And we built a very nice project, a small pavilion.
Nature has no simple shapes. Everything grows in different directions. But when we harvest timber for construction, we only think in straight lines and waste a lot of wood in the process. AI timber, produced by Maestro, is different. Rather than producing standardized panels, we use AI to scan the unique shape of each log, fitting them together like pieces of a puzzle. This process dramatically reduces wood waste and creates walls, ceilings, and floors that preserve the irregular beauty of the forest. This is AI timber, the material of the future, made by nature with a little help from AI.
So this was a nice experiment. We are trying to bring this to a next level, actually building an architecture out of it. It's a bit experimental, but you can see it's totally doable and it's totally feasible. So we're working on it, not just for pavilions, but for bigger things. But then again, like working with nature is always an interesting topic. However, architecture has been constantly somehow put into kind of a different relationship with nature. We're being told that architecture is where we're working on nature, dominating nature to build something different. There's a very nice quote about this from Carlo Scarpa, a brilliant architect, Italian architect from the last century. And he said, between a tree and a house, choose the tree. Because it's a perfect organism. It's been perfected through millions of years of evolution. And we don't want to cut a tree to build a house. We really want to respect nature. Now we try to reverse this thing. And we try to build a house in which you don't have to choose between the tree and the house. This is a private house. Our only private house has been kind of a really intense experience to build a house, especially for one person. You know, you want to have your house designed basically by yourself. And here we design a house for two owners. One is the owner of the actual house, and the other one is the giant tree, Alma, that you can see right in the middle of the space. So build a house for a tree that actually revolves around nature, multiple types of nature. The owner of the house is really in connection with nature itself. I'll tell you more about that. But we really try to build a house around a tree. So the house is not just physically built around the tree, but revolves around the tree itself. The climate inside, the light inside are actually controlled by the human and the tree. It's kind of a negotiation between the two human beings to create an ecosystem where both the human and the tree can thrive and survive. So the whole spaces of the house are actually, like main spaces of the house are revolving around the tree. There's different experiences. You can be at the ground floor, you can be at the top floor and see leaves and be shaded by leaves. So it's really a house built around the tree. So a different relationship between men and trees in a hybrid ecosystem. And then we brought the same, kind of the same concept into the canteen of the company owned by the person we designed the house for. The owner of the house and the owner of the company is the biggest tomato producer of Italy. What a cliche, of course, like pasta, pizza, and tomato. He grows his own tomatoes, and he's really in a deep connection with nature. He knows everything about tomato. You can talk with him like for 2 hours straight about tomatoes. It's really interesting. You get to learn a lot of different things. We wanted the canteen to somehow walk the talk, so really talk about nature and respect nature from the get-go. And there are a lot of different ideas, a lot of different images, a lot of different experiments on how to build in a different relationship with nature. We try not to touch nature this time, so we cut a perfect piece of the landscape. We just lift it up and we build the canteen underneath it. So you can see the ground that it was actually lifted up, and the whole canteen that is developed around this piece that is lifted up. And the funny thing is that actually you can dine, you can have your lunch like looking at the menu in front of you. So it's really kind of embracing nature in many different ways. Funny thing, if you see the ground and the paving, it's actually done by resin that was made by using dry tomato peels from the leftover of the production of this tomato can, which is the one that you see there. And it's also a restaurant. It's actually a restaurant open to the public at night, so you can go there and eat. We had a nice Michelin star chef that is curating both the meals for the employee in the morning and afternoon, and then it's also curating the dinner. So you can actually go there and have a nice dinner in this canteen underneath the earth. But then again, when it gets about like hybrid ecosystem between man and nature, this sense of living together in urban spaces, we have quite a big project that we've done not so far away from here. It's in Singapore. It's actually It used to be a car park, so a huge car park right in the middle of the city, in the financial district. You can tell how much, I mean, the land is valued there. We got the inspiration by a quote, actually, by the whole thinking about how Singapore is actually revolving around nature. Lee Kuan Yew, one of probably the most important founder of Singapore, said, "I've always believed that, like the urban landscape, a concrete jungle destroys the urban spirit. So we need greenery of nature to lift up our spirits." So it's really kind of synergy between the man and nature that is already inside of the somehow the thoughts of people living in Singapore. It's a huge tower, but we really try to bring nature inside. We made also the developer happy. As you know, your architects, when you're working with a developer, you need to make sure that square meters are there. They have to sell them. So we try to carve out nature in all the places where not so valuable for humans. Above the ground floor, which is the retail floor, above the parking lot, and in an elevated, what we call spring, in an elevated lobby, right in the middle of a skyscraper. With that, we recovered some cubic meters that we used on top of the skyscraper itself. So somehow nature is helping us also creating spaces for encounter, but also somehow making spaces for real estate in this case. So you had the ground floor, which is pretty much inserted in nature. And spaces that you see up there with some trees on top are actually parking lots. There's a very nice street vendor market. So we preserve this kind of a tradition in Singapore. We invite a lot of street vendors to fill in a whole floor of the tower. And it is actually quite nice because everybody working in the tower is actually having lunch at this market. And then you can see there's a giant spring right there in the middle of the skyscraper. All the openings of the skyscraper, the orientation of it, has been designed and studied together with landscape designers to make sure that the trees inside were actually working with the natural ventilation, cross ventilation, the sunbeams, and everything was working together inside of a living ecosystem, a hybrid ecosystem. And people are actually using it to work outside, but it's also open to the public. So you can actually go there and get to the 18th floor, I think, 17th floor, and then you enjoy these 5 floors of spring right in the middle of skyscraper, this kind of a hybrid ecosystem. And then you have, let's say, an elevated farm, 280 meter tall. Some of the plants here are actually herbs that are used by the shops and the restaurant on top of the tower. So somehow also some cultivation happening there. This is a short video. As you can see, we try to really blend nature in, but not just as a green screen, but more really as an ecosystem. If you've been to Singapore, but also similar to Bangkok, nature is really present inside of a street and is used not just for, let's say, as a greenery, but really as a hybrid ecosystem. We introduced some microclimate mitigation systems. You have this giant lobby. This is a mixed-use development, so you can see there are a lot of different functions. Main one is offices. You have like 34 floors of offices. Main tenant is JP Morgan, so the bank. They like the idea, probably. And we designed together with Big. So we co-designed this together with Big. It was a nice experiment of co-design. This is a Hawker Street Market. Hawker's Market. You have the elevated plaza here. As you can see, it's somehow it's a good experience, interesting experiment of blending natural, artificial together. So the two types of intelligence, collective intelligence, where people can have like some space to meet outside, but at the same time the ecosystem that comes in. But what if we teach building to behave like living beings? So what if we can teach building to react just as real ecosystem to what is happening outside? We try to get to the solution by solving a problem, which is the one that most of office buildings, but most of buildings has, which is what we call the problem of the empty lobby. So this whole lobby, it's actually heated up. You have snowing outside, and the whole lobby is at, I don't know, like 22 degrees, 23 degrees, even if there is just one person inside. So we said, how can we have a building that actually reacts to people presence in a more smart way? We started a project back in 2013, and we created, it's actually MIT, but we created what we call local warming. So with infrared lights, we try to track people with sensors and create heat bubbles around them. So not just heating up the whole space, but just a person. That was our next experiment. We brought it to 2014 Venice Biennale, so some years ago, more than 10. Cool research, absolutely not ready for the market. It was so expensive, consuming so much energy, it was not working at all, but the fact of tracking people. So we tried to do the same in Dubai, cooling, with little nozzles and sensors. They were seeing the presence of people passing by, and they were spraying a bit of fresh water underneath, so trying to cool down. Again, very nice experiment, 2015, very difficult to implement. And then we said, okay, we have a building. We want to bring this concept into a building. It's a foundation of a private foundation in Torino, in the city where we have our main office. It's called Fondazione Agnelli, and the concept was simple. We have a lot of people working in the same space. We want to try to end what is called the thermostat war. So the fact of you and your colleague sitting on the same desk, and you want 25 degrees and your colleague wants 18 degrees. And so you're having a fight around the thermostat. So we're trying to say, okay, how do we implement the local warming concept in a more effective way? We work with Siemens. We work with them for one of the first experiment of integrated BMS, building management system, was 2016. We started 2016, we delivered 2017. And the idea was really simple. We create like bubbles, and we set the preferences with our phone or smartwatch, and the whole ambient temperature is 20 degrees, and you can sit in a desk, and you want 22 degrees, your colleague wants 25, and the system somehow negotiates and gets to a median temperature that will be delivered. This is the building finished, more historic part, and more like new part. It's a total renovation of the building, a bit of the inside, and then a short video that shows you how the building. So this is a bit of an old project. Again, in 2017, we're working now bringing microclimate mitigation also outside for hot climates. There's a Senseable City Lab, MIT Senseable City Lab in Dubai that is working on how to mitigate heat island effect with nature and technology. So we're working on this also to get to the next level. I'm going to share to you a project about somehow community. We talked about the thermostat war before. How do we live together in the same space? How do we exercise a bit of collective intelligence or non-intelligence in having work around the thermostat? Now, I'll tell you how do we build a collective knowledge inside of a space. It's a project that took some years to be set up. We've been working on MIT and their interaction inside of the campus for quite a long time, I think since 2015. Different ways of trying to understand how people interact inside of a space. And then in 2019, we set up an ambitious project about detecting and mapping all the interaction through emails that were exchanged inside the different departments of the MIT. That was a long process, and for those of you who know, MIT has a bit of bureaucracy, so we needed to go through a lot of different things, authorization and so on and so forth, and then we set it up and we started monitoring, and that was probably December 2019 or January 2020. Then in March 2020, something happened. and the MIT progressively shut down the whole campus. And we somehow started receiving a lot of weird data about how people were interacting via email and via communication. And actually, it's this kind of experiment that you cannot do. We remove physical space from the equation. And that was really interesting because what, in the end, we discovered, it's something that was put in a theory by sociologist, American sociologist Mark Granovetter in 1973, which is the theory behind weak ties and strong ties. So those of you who are working inside of the same design company, or those of you that are working for ASA, share what is called a strong tie. So there's a strong connection between the two of you. And those of you who just met during these days and introduced to each other and exchanging a bit of information, those are the ones that are called weak ties. So the red lines that are actually connecting two different parts of the network. And what Mark Granovetter says is that the weak ties are the ones responsible for vehiculating new ideas and new information. Ultimately, the weak ties, the red lines connecting the two different parts of the network, are the one responsible for bringing innovation, are the one responsible for making us understand things from a different perspective. And so this is, I mean, we monitor 2,834 faculty members. I don't know if some of you were actually monitored through this experiment, maybe not. We mapped the strong ties and we mapped the weak ties. And what we saw is that during the month the campus was closed, we lost more than 4,800 weak ties. So communication that were happening between people that were not necessarily colleagues. So they were not meeting over Zoom, but they were actually meeting over in front of a coffee machine in some communal areas, sport facilities, and so on and so forth. So we lost that kind of connection. That somehow bring back the importance of physical space to generate weak ties and ultimately to generate innovation. So what we try to do out of this data is we try to use them to engineer the space for innovation in a different way. So to try to bring as much as we can kind of a serendipitous connection inside of the spaces. So when we were asked to design a new scientific campus for a University of Milan, we try to bring that research into practice, we bring that research into design. We were asked to design this master plan back in 2015, actually. This is an innovation campus built on the former 2015 Milan Expo area. The whole campus actually designed for as an innovation hub. But then in 2019, starting from 2019, it's a long design process, we were asked to design a little tile of the campus itself, which is more than 1 million square feet of development, and it's a new scientific hub, scientific campus for the University of Milan. We try to design this to maximize encounter and to maximize the possibility of shared space. As you can see, what we call the common ground, so the ground floor is completely open. It's open towards the whole development, which is actually a space for innovation, again, for a lot of companies to come in, a lot of R&D labs are there. So we try to open up the ground floor, of course, with the different degrees of accessibility. We try to have spaces and boulevards, shaded boulevards, where people can actually meet, and then a lot of courtyards filled with nature. Some of them filled with nature, some others filled in a different way, but really to create a lot of spaces for encounter between the outside and the inside, and also a lot of spaces between different apartments. As you can see, here is the common ground. Another project is Beer Built. So we really tried to bring in this research from MIT, from the Senseable City Lab, into practice, somehow reverse engineering the data that we were receiving and try to maximize the space for encounter. Ultimately, if we share ideas in the physical spaces, spaces for design for sharing ideas are really important. And so as architects, we have the duty of working around them. I want to finish with one project, which is ultimately somehow really an experiment about collective intelligence. It's a project we've done together with Haller Yun, American architects and designers. It's a project that we brought to Venice, to the Venice Biennale. And it was a very nice way of conceiving a public space for encounter and for sharing ideas in Venice. You know, Venice is very dense. doesn't have streets, but it has canals mainly. Very few squares, which in Venice are called campi. So we decide, okay, how do we design a space for encounter and sharing information and sharing these ideas in Venice? Well, we design a floating piazza, so a floating square. We started with a very small model. It's Biennale. When Biennale opened, the building was not there, the piazza was not there, so we said, okay, let's bring a model and tell a story. Was a very beautiful model done by our facility, which is doing model making, but it was not close to be a space for Encanto, of course. So we designed the project in a bit of a wider way. We wanted to present the project in Venice. You know, the Biennale was about climate crisis, was about the 3 types of intelligence. So we wanted to present this in that setting, in Venice, as a floating platform. And then we wanted to transport this to Brazil. And that will become the Italian pavilion at COP30, so the conference around climate. Again, a global stage where to share ideas around the climate crisis. And then we wanted to gift it to Brazil as a piece of living infrastructure for the communities on the Amazons. So staying there, representing a piece of cultural infrastructure, a space for encounter for people on the Amazons. We made it. That was September, actually, not August 2025. We actually built it in a naval shipyard next to Venice. We transported to Venice in the Biennale. It stayed 2 weeks in Venice. We organized a series of events and talks on top of Acquapraza. The idea was having a floating platform where you can somehow touch water in many different ways. You can relate with water in many different ways. So you can get very close to water, almost touching it. But water is also at the center of the main stage. This is somehow, they call it a pool, a moon pool, right in the middle of the floating piazza, or the floating square, where you can somehow touch water, and water is really at the main stage. The level of the water inside the moon pool is the same level of the water outside. There's a short video about how does Acquapraza look like in Venice. You can see, you can almost touch the water here. You can touch the water. You conceive this as a stage, so we have a slightly tilted surface. It was a nice experiment. And of course, we needed to build a piazza, so it was open air piazza. What happened is that we realized that in Brazil, in November, it rains a lot. So we needed to design also a roof. We shipped the piazza and we built on top of it a roof in Brazil. It was hard. Very difficult to build things in Belém, which is the port of the Amazon in Brazil. But then we made it and we shipped the thing. And this is the city that you see in the distance is actually Belém, where the COP30 took place last year in November. And this is the finished platform. It was one of the main stage for conversation at COP30 outside of the main venue. It was an anchor right in front of a very historic part of the city of Belém. You can see the cathedral back there, and the house in front of which we're anchored. It's called the House of 11 Windows. It was actually designed back in the years by an Italian architect, so we tried to add a piece there. It became the unofficial Italian pavilion for COP30. So the official one is in the main venue, which was a pavilion probably 5 or 6 kilometers from here. And then the whole main venue was shutting down at night, and the city center was actually the main stage for continue the conversation. So we had this nice experiment there. What you can see actually on the other side of the Amazon River, it's the Amazon forest. So it's really the harbor of the Amazon. It's the first city that you can see from the sea to the Amazon forest. This is a bit what happened inside. At a certain point, we said, okay, we designed a space for conversation. There are a lot of nice conversation, nice talks, nice keynotes, and so on and so forth. But then at a certain point, we got into Acquapraza after the main venue shut down, and we saw this. So people were actually using it as a piazza. There was like music playing, people having conversation, just enjoying some exchange also of informations and love probably. But it was really nice because actually it became a living part of this city and this kind of ecosystem, an open piazza for discussion, for conversation, for bringing the water, the topic of water, and more broadly the topic of climate crisis on the main stage. So this is just, a tiny project, and it's actually living as a cultural infrastructure. We donated this to the city of Belém. They're maintaining it and using it as a stage for maybe, I don't know, talks or samba, I don't know, it depends. Okay, I just want to finish this conversation with a sentence that we all like inside of our office. It's a sentence of Alan Key. It's the best way to predict the future is to invent it. This is what we are called to do today, like working against the climate crisis and invent a better future for us and invent it together. So thank you very much.